Hey again everyone, and welcome back to the channel for the next installment in our new figure showcase series, where we take a look at a new figure I'm adding into the collection. Now, for today's review, we're going back to the world of Star Trek, and we're going to go take a look at the EXO-6 Captain Sulu, based on his appearance in Star Trek The Undiscovered Country. Now, this is the final kind of original cast movie. Obviously, Captain Kirk does make an appearance in Star Trek Generations, but this was kind of the culmination of that original cast journey in Star Trek. And look, I know, Star Trek, if you're watching this, you're probably a Star Trek fan. You're not, because I don't think this line of figures has a broad appeal outside of that fandom. But look, I do like Star Trek a lot. I think these movies in particular were done amazingly well. I'm not a huge Star Trek the Motion Picture fan, but I think starting with Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, leading to the end, with a couple stumbles here and there, but I think they had a solid set of movies. So this is again Captain Hikaru Sulu, based on his appearance in that final movie. And by this point in time, you know, he's in the movie, he's a little distanced from the primary crew, given the fact that he's been promoted to captain, and Kirk remains captain of the Enterprise. So we don't see him as much, but it's nice to see that he did have a career that stemmed beyond making him captain of the Excelsior. So, as we normally do, we'll just take a look at everything that comes out of the box. Look, these are very straightforward, simple figures. I'm not gonna say there's what really makes these are the uniforms, in my opinion. Right, EXO-6 has often excelled at getting uniforms, and one of the things that you're seeing is obviously the complexity of those from the motion picture. So that's kind of a big selling point here. But as we normally do, let's start with the hands. And look, they're very basic accessories that every figure has, and no different here. You get two fists that I don't think I'm really gonna have this figure holding, and then a couple of, that I'm gonna use with the figure, and then you've got a couple of accessory holding hands. Paint apps are decent, detail is decent. It's nothing, out of this world here. They're serviceable. They do what they're supposed to. Then you do get this phaser, which is a slightly different look from what we've seen before from EXO-6, I believe. So it's definitely nice to get a slightly different version. It is a little bulkier at the top, but nicely done. Great detail work as well. I am surprised that it does have a removable kind of clip at the bottom. I'm guessing that was just kind of a prop accessory, or you could call it like a power pack, but looks very nice here. And then you do get this saucer. Yes, I know it's a cup of tea and it's a plate basically, but look, the detail work is actually really nice, and it really is a great accessory. And if you've watched the movie, you do see Sulu drinking his tea and holding this cup that has the Excelsior name on it, right? So from a movie perspective, it's definitely one of those accessories that I think very much belongs with the set. So yes, can it be boring as a cup of tea? Sure, you can look at it like that, but I think it's actually a pretty cool accessory. Now you get the display stand again. What's nice here is these do serve to kind of also look like a little bit of a diorama if you want to have them on a sort of transporter pad. And what's nice as well about this one is it kind of harkens back to those traditional figures from or the traditional movies, where things were a little bit different from the more modern iterations of Trek. All right, so now, not many accessories. Let's jump into the sculpt. And look, it's decent. I do think that EXO-6 can be hit or miss. I think there are some figures, and I will forever say this: the Star Trek Voyager line was a lot more hit than, was a lot more miss than hit, unfortunately. Especially that Captain Janeway, unfortunately. But there were characters that I don't think anybody else is ever going to make, which is why I jumped into the line. Now, I'm glad to say that the head sculpts have improved, and this, I think, is a really decent portrait of Hikaru Sulu, right? Is it missing some of that detail we've seen from the likes of Hot Toys? I think it is. I do think the paint on the eyes in particular has improved pretty dramatically from EXO-6, taking you away from that doll-like Barbie look of eyes to something a little bit more realistic that we as collectors are now becoming accustomed to. Now, the rest of the figure, very straightforward, right? If you've gotten any of the other movie figures that they've done so far, this is a very similar uniform, just different piping and different rank structure as well, but it is one of my favorite uniforms from the Trek universe, just because it is a little bit more complex. There's a little bit more to it, right? From the lapel at the front, the comm badge, the leather belt with the Star Trek insignia, and then the different rank pips on the on the sleeves, right? Even the pants have that nice red striping down, and they're tucked into the boots a little bit, which does give it a little bit more of a military dress uniform look, as opposed to some of the other ones that are just more functional and utilitarian. So there's just something visually more striking here. But look, that's pretty much it, right? That's what the figure is. I think it's a great figure overall. I'm pretty much in for these movie figures based on that original cast. Again, they did a great job. I like the movie, so I want that representation in the collection. As far as posability, they're pretty straightforward. They can hold a pose, right? Question is, how dramatic of a pose are you necessarily going to get? Look, him holding the teacup is probably the best pose ever, and I don't care what anybody says. I know it looks boring. I know it's a guy holding a cup of tea and a saucer, but it's still pretty cool, especially if you remember the scene from the movie, and I think it goes with the character's, attitude overall and his kind of personality. So yeah, don't knock me for liking that pose, but yeah, he's a captain. I think we've seen captains of Star Trek definitely get involved with some of the action, which is maybe a little bit more atypical, but he has that ability also to hold the phaser and have a little bit more of an action pose. And he holds them well. So look, base bodies are fine, articulation is fine, just a very simple figure, right? I think this is going to appeal, like I said at the beginning of the video, to Star Trek fans. If you're not a Star Trek fan, this actually a figure like this might be appealing to you because it has the more intricate uniform. Some of the other ones are very simple, and I don't know that they're appealing to the masses. Even so, I think this is a very niche market, right? Star Trek continues to be very limited. It's not Star Wars. It's not, Marvel, or some of the other licenses. Like, we're getting a lot of 80s movies that were Terminator and the like. So it's definitely not that. But it is a solid figure if you like Star Trek, and in particular, if you want a Captain Hikaru Sulu. So, short video today. Let me know your thoughts, and as always, we'll touch base on the next video.